Hi, my name is Eli. Welcome to Small But Mighty Kids Change the World. I'm here today with students from the Thompson Green Team who have led successful zero-waste campaigns featuring trash formations. They will interview their special guest, Rohin Khemani. Rohin Khemani from Bash the Trash has been making musical instruments from trash. Here is a clip of Rohin at our Thompson Bash the Trash assembly.
Happy to be here at Thompson Elementary with you all. We, of course, are called Bash the Trash. Bash the Trash. We're called Bash the Trash because we build musical instruments out of trash. So
Maanik, what are your questions for Rohin?
What is Bash the Trash?
So Bash the Trash is a group of musicians and scientists who have come together for over 25 years presenting shows and programs for students in schools where we play on instruments made from materials that you would otherwise put in the recycling bin.
Leah, what are your questions for Rohin?
Who started Bash the Trash?
So Bash the Trash was started by John Bertels, who is a Kennedy Center Fellow, and his wife Karina Piaggio. They're the founders, and it began as a husband and wife team, yet has expanded to a group of musicians in 4 or 5 different cities across the country with over 20 musicians involved.
What was the first instrument you made?
So personally, I'm a percussionist, and I love to experiment with materials that you play as percussion instruments, but I'm also a violinist, and one of the first instruments that I really got my hands wet with was a styrolin, which is sort of like a violin-sized version of the styrocello, which you saw in the show.
What inspired you to join Bash the Trash?
So when I was in graduate school, I was studying jazz music. I was studying how to play the drum set in jazz styles and also how to write jazz music. And I'd been studying my instruments for a very long time, almost 20 plus years at that point. And John Bertels came in and did a workshop and opened my mind to seeing that instruments were things that were actually invented by people. Even though we spend so much time playing instruments, we don't always realize that scientists/musicians invented the instruments that you see every day. Violins, cellos, pianos. It's a combination of science and art.
Cool. And how long have you been a part of Bash the Trash?
So I've been working with Bash the Trash as a musician for over 14 years.
Lilia, what are your questions for Rohin?
Why did the founder choose to make musical instruments out of trash, and what inspired him?
That's a great question. And I believe John was experimenting with found objects. And he's a composer by training and was looking for unusual sounds to play with. And that led him to things like digging through trash bins and experimenting with materials that you might otherwise not think of as musical instruments.
So, what is your favorite instrument that you have ever made?
So I think I shared this a little bit, but I love the styrolin. It was a really fun instrument to experiment with. And like I said, it's like a combination of a violin, but it's only got 2 strings instead of 4 strings, and instead of a wooden box or body, it's made from styrofoam.
Do you think Bash the Trash has changed environmental awareness, and in what ways?
I hope so, and I think so, because we have performed for thousands and thousands of kids over the years. And our idea is to share information without necessarily preaching information about what needs to be done. I think younger generations, kids in your position, understand that we have to take care of the earth for future generations. And I think our message is clear, that we believe that there needs to be a solution to the trash problem in the world. In fact, something I think a lot about is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch and the fact that all of our oceans have very big islands of trash. It's a really unknown and lesser known but sad reality that our trash doesn't always end up on land. More often it ends up in the oceans. And if you can imagine the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, at the moment it is bigger than 3 times the size of France. So it's a very urgent need.
Indigo, what are your questions for Rohin?
What is challenging about coming to a school and making musical instruments out of trash?
Well, sometimes when we come into schools, the schools have collected a really wide and great array of trash. But it's not always easy to make musical instruments out of all of those materials. Sometimes cardboard tubes are a little flimsier than we would like. Sometimes bottles are too hard to cut. And sometimes different ages of students are just not able to make things that we hope they would be able to make. Sometimes in the classrooms, things can get a little rowdy with excitement, so things like you would imagine any teacher would find challenging. But generally, we have a really great experience, and kids are really open to building really awesome awesome things.
What do you find rewarding about Bash the Trash?
So I find a lot of things very rewarding. First of all, working with students such as yourselves is really inspiring to me. I find that I learn just as much from you as I hope you learn from me and from the Bash the Trash performances. I also am very inspired by making a change and seeing kids' eyes light up with ideas of how they can think about trash and our future.
Emma, Gael, what are your questions for Rohin?
Why is reducing trash so important to you?
So I really think that we have a big trash problem, not just in the United States, but in the world in general. I think often, like I mentioned, about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch and about our oceans, and how our oceans are a lifeblood to us as humans. And if we don't think about creative ways to reduce our trash, our plight is near as a civilization and as a species. And I think it's really important to think about how each of us, in our own small way, can make a collective difference. Because even just by not using disposable plastic bottles, by choosing to bring reusable straws instead of using plastic straws, we can each make a huge difference.
Does combining music with environmental awareness make a compelling message?
I think so. As a teacher and as a musician, I find that music is a really effective way to share information. I find that not only kids, but adults retain information a lot more when it's communicated through the arts. And so it's really fun for me as a musician to play musical instruments made from reused materials and to think about how we built them and how we can play creative music on them. But I think it also helps to drive the message home and to hopefully stick. I have a 10-year-old daughter, and she's a musician, and she is somebody who really enjoys building things out of materials. I remember sometimes when I was a younger parent bringing home a toy in a box, and sometimes the box was more interesting than the toy. I would find her sitting inside the box that the car seat had arrived in. And I do think about her future all the time. I think every parent thinks about their children's future. And when you think about how easy it is for us to simply buy something, use it, and throw it away, it concerns me greatly, because we just don't need to do that. Even by simply going to the store with a reusable bag, by bringing a container to put our coffee in at the coffee shop, or by bringing a reusable water bottle, we can make a huge difference. Think about how many things we throw away that we wouldn't need to throw away if we brought something reusable. And so, yeah, the future is upon us all. And I think being a parent and having a young child who's about your age is definitely part of the inspiration.
Thank you for tuning in to Small But Mighty Kids Change the World.